The Vancouver Canucks have a big decision to make with their goaltending, with Arturs Silovs still not signed, their third string goaltender still up in the air. I'm going to break down what Silovs' contract might look like, who's the perfect third string goaltender, with the perfect one still being a free agent. I'll get into all this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to give a huge shout out to the 3,527 of you guys that are subscribed. We're trying to reach our goal of 4,000 that I'm going to set for next Sunday. You guys smashed the last goal, so I know you can do it. If you guys are enjoying this daily Canucks content and you never want to miss another episode, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be here all off season into next season, giving you updates from around the Canucks. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Arturs Silovs signing imminent. So obviously with Silovs, he was the saving grace for the Vancouver Canucks just the last season. We've seen him go into the playoffs, taking the Edmonton Oilers to Game 7 in his first full stretch of being in the NHL. Silovs has played 19 games in the NHL, that's including playoffs. You can see his last two stints with the Canucks were back in 2022-2023, where he played 5 games with a .908 save percentage. We see him have 4 games this season in the regular season with an .881, going into the playoffs almost having a .900 save percentage. So when you're looking at Silovs, yes, Silovs at 23 years old, a former 6th round pick for the Canucks, was outstanding. This guy's going to be signed 100% brought back to be the backup goaltender behind Thatcher Demko. Now, when you do look at Silovs, obviously he was signed to his LLC by Jim Benning. The first 2 years were slid due to him not playing in the NHL or in the AHL, but we see that he is coming off his contract of under $800,000. Now with Silovs, he does still need to be signed. This is an RFA, a guy that's going into still being an RFA just a few days after free agency. With the Canucks, they do have roughly $2.7 million once Tucker Poolman is put onto LTIR to start the season, so they do have room to work with to bring a guy like Silovs back. Now, the biggest question a lot of people have around Silovs is how much are the Canucks going to sign him for? And I'll give you a rough ball estimate on what I think he'll be signed to and why. So the first contract you're looking at here was one that Patrik Allvin signed with Höglander. We've seen Höglander come into the NHL, have 2 to 3 seasons under his belt before signing an extension. The extension was a 2-year, 1.1 AAV. We see this contract signed for a young guy, a bridge contract. He's in the final year now, but this was more of Patrik Allvin saying, hey, we want you to prove your worth. We want to show what you can bring to this team. Take this 2-year deal and then we'll extend you for a longer term. We also seen this happen with the newly addition, which was Podkolzin. We've seen Podkolzin signed to his 2-year deal, $2 million over the 2 years, making it a 1 AAV per year. Now, when you do look at both these contracts, as I said, it seems like Patrik Allvin really likes to work with these 2-year bridge deals for the young guys that still have room to grow, for more to show themselves and to keep the playoff window open. A guy like Silovs, who does fall under this criteria, in my opinion, of having 3 years and 3 brief stints with the Vancouver Canucks, as you can see in 2022, this year in the regular season and going into the playoffs. I think Silovs has shown that he can be the backup goaltender for this team, but we want to see a bigger sample size, obviously. This is a guy that's going to go in and compete for the backup role, but it does get down to how much would you pay him, how long of a contract would you sign him for? What's your guys' thoughts on this? Let me know down in the comments, because I do truly think this is going to work out to be about a $950,000 to $1 million on a 2-year deal, just to get his footing in, to prove that he can be the backup, and maybe he does become the starter at some point. But talking about the starter, talking about the backup, we need to talk about the third string that Casey DeSmith filled the void of last year, with the first option being Jiri Patera. So Jiri Patera was a guy that came into this Canucks team on free agency. He was a guy that played for the Vegas Golden Knights. We've seen him play for the Henderson Silver Knights last season, but he did have 2 stints with Vegas. During his stints with Vegas, you've seen he put up a .929 in 2 games. He goes on to this past season, in the regular season, having a .893 save percentage. He was a 6th-round draft pick, which is funny enough that Silovs was also a 6th-round draft pick. Maybe the Canucks have good value coming out of the 6th round, but at 25 years old, signed on a 2-year deal at $775,000. This feels more like a depth guy, a guy that can come in a pinch, but I do think he starts down with Abbotsford this season. As I said, signing this cheap 2-way deal, coming to the Vancouver Canucks, not having a ton of experience would be a little shaky. As I said, this is the guy with less NHL games than Arturs Silovs, only having 8. The hardest thing with bringing in a third string goaltender that doesn't have a lot of starts is if things go south. Obviously, a guy like Thatcher Demko, who was up as a nominee for the Vezina Trophy, obviously losing this to Connor Hellebuck, he did have a third string goaltender in Casey DeSmith. We've seen Demko go down, Casey DeSmith took over, Silovs took over. We've seen this bounce around, and we've seen this quite a bit around the league. So having two inexperienced guys, if a guy like Thatcher Demko goes down, might be a little scary and a little shaky for the Canucks. As I said, with a guy like Silovs, you're coming off a rookie ELC. You have a guy that's only played 19 NHL games. If you bring in a guy like Jiri Patera, he only has 8 games. You're having less than 30 games of experience between your second and third string goaltender. So this is where I think the Vancouver Canucks really need to look into the market and find a guy that has experience, and the perfect fit being Martin Jones. Now, Martin Jones has been around for quite some time. This is a guy that started with the Los Angeles Kings, winning a Stanley Cup. We've seen him move on to the San Jose Sharks, where he played 24 playoff games, 10 playoff games, 20 playoff games. This guy has quite a lot of experience around the league. We've seen him recently come off a contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he played the third string goalie role. Now, the biggest thing with Martin Jones is this is a guy that's going to come in for cheap. We've seen Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs sign him to a contract of $875,000. We've seen him take over the starting role on this contract. We've seen him be a solid goaltender for the Leafs when they needed him. Now, bringing in a guy like this makes a ton more sense. As you look at the very top, yes, he might be 34. Yes, he has experience. But on the very top, Martin Jones, North Vancouver, BC. Bringing in a guy to his hometown team, a guy where he can play close to home in the end of his career. I think this is the ideal option for a guy like Patrik Allvin to really take a swing on. You're bringing in a guy that has almost 500 games of NHL experience under his belt. This is a guy that can get you wins. You can see throughout his career of him being a starting goaltender. Starting off as a backup in LA, working his way to being a starter in San Jose. You can see him being a starter on the Seattle Kraken, to stealing the starting job with Toronto when a guy like Joseph Woll went down. This is a guy that is the perfect fit behind Thatcher Demko, behind Silovs, to not only help them win games when needed, but being a mentor, bringing the experience, playoff experience, the experience of just playing in the NHL. 500 games for an NHL goaltender is a big feat. Having him in this locker room, having him around the team, having him practice with these guys every year would be huge. Bringing in a guy like Martin Jones on a similar or cheaper contract of $875,000, you can also bury this contract completely. If we see him come over, not play great for the Vancouver Canucks, and ends up being a guy they can't trust, you can send him down to the minors. You can bury him. You can place him on waivers with no cost against the cap hit. This is where you could see a guy like Jiri Patera come up. Yes, the Canucks also do have some rookie goaltenders down in the AHL, but none of them also have NHL experience, and this is why I think Martin Jones is the perfect fit. What would your guys' thoughts on Martin Jones possibly coming as the third string goalie? Would you like this more than a guy like Jiri, or is there someone in the Canucks system you'd rather bring up? But like I said, you want the guys with experience. But let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this video, and while you're talking about comments, we'll get in everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. The comment today comes from Amber. 2 comments so good I had to use them twice. We see Amber said Vancouver still needs a puck moving D-man in the bottom pairing, and she said subbed. I completely agree with this. I think the Canucks are going to look out to pick up another puck moving defenseman. We've seen the Colorado Avalanche pick up Brennstrom on a cheap contract of puck moving defenseman that can slide within the lineup. So once Patrik Allvin figures out the Silovs situation, once they get that third string goaltender, I think we're going to see him poke around, find a guy that might have slipped through the cracks, pick him up as maybe a 7th, 8th, or 9th defenseman. What would your guys' thoughts on all this? Let me know down in the comments. You could be featured on the next episode like Amber did here today. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe. Like I said, we're going to try to reach 4,000 by next Sunday. You guys smashed the last goal, so let's smash this one as well. But I've been your host, Mark Pye, and take care.